Hello everyone, I'm CoolGuy, welcome back. Continuing the series here, there are three main classes in Destiny, and each of these have three subclasses, and each subclass has three skill tree paths you can take. I've been diving into the least used path of the three choices. I've gone over top tree Arcstrider, Way of the Warrior. The middle tree Deflect and bottom tree get a lot of play. I went over top tree Striker. You don't see it too much. There's lots of code in the missile middle trees, lots of bottom tree Knockout, Frontal Assault. So today, I want to look into the bottom tree Solar DAWNBLADE, Attunement of Flame. And before I talk about the playstyle and the exotic pairings, when I do these videos, it's to show what the subclass has to offer. Sometimes there are clearly better options and real reasons why a subclass isn't really played. You can still have fun with them, and for this one, I personally still do. But for this one and some other ones coming up, it needs to be said that they do need a little bit more. And this particular subclass, bottom tree Dawn, does need a buff. It has some good qualities, but the rest of it isn't very desirable. It's due for a buff. The options in the tree have something about it that the other subclasses have had buffs for. Now the issue with it is that there's a near complete absence of a neutral game. It's near non-existent. So let's look into it. First we have Igniting Touch, strike an enemy with this melee ability to burn them and cause them to explode when killed. So with a charged melee, once you hit an enemy, it consumes the melee charge. If you don't down them, it does do some burn tick damage. If the charged melee is the final blow, then they can explode, causing damage around them. It can collateral. Think of it like a solar bloom effect. Next, we have Phoenix Dive. Activate while midair to quickly descend and restore your health. When Daybreak is active, Descent causes explosive damage. Phoenix Dive is very unique. It's the only subclass of the 27 total that has something like this built in. It's kind of like Wormhusk. It's something you should use often. You can use it defensively, you can use it as a last-ditch effort, you can use it evasively, and you can use it to get back into gunfights quicker. This is the main draw to it, so abuse this when you can. Next, we have Fated for the Flame. Daybreak projectiles seek targets as they travel, and upon impact, launch a streak of deadly flames. Then we have Everlasting Fire. Killing enemy with Daybreak increases its duration. To me, it is one of the best supers in the game. It's gotten some nerfs, but even with that, and even though it doesn't have something like Icarus Dash, the tracking is very generous. You can get kills and get some super energy back. I got my first ever 7th column with bottom tree DAWNBLADE. And I couldn't find the original file, so I just ripped this from Twitter, but it still remains. It tracks very well. You can just throw it in the general direction. You can throw it across map for your last couple dawns, and they will track enemies. But when you look at it, we have 2 perks that are strictly for the super. And if we get technical, all in all, 3 of the 4 perks involve the super, because you can use the Phoenix Dive offensively. So half the subclass, and even actually a little bit more than half the subclass, is towards the super. Now, bottom tree Daybreak is very good, but it isn't that good. It needs a new perk to be added. Fated for the Flame and Everlasting Fire should be combined. Projectiles seek targets, killing enemy with Daybreak increases its duration. Done. It should be just 1 perk. We've seen this before, things combined like with Gunslinger, but that would leave open a new perk. Maybe they can bring something back from the D1 Sunsinger like Viking Funeral. Targets afflicted with burn damage take more damage from all sources, stacks up to 3 times. It could be Touch of Flame. All grenades ignite enemies, causing damage over time. Could be Gift of the Sun, gain an additional grenade. Or it could be something new that they come up with, kind of like how with Top Tree they got the Celestial Fire melee, send out that spiral of 3 explosive solar energy blast. It needs some perks combined, and it needs something new, because as it stands, we have 3 perks that are going into the super. The 1 charged melee is meh, but the main draw is the Phoenix Dive. Your entire neutral game is those 2 things, start to end, and this is one of the subclasses that as the game moves on, other subclasses have gotten buffs. Then we have Stasis coming in November. It keeps getting knocked further and further down the list, and that's PvE as well. So for the opening of this video, it just really needs to be talked about, because to me, it's an issue. So for the 3 exotics I want to go over, it's going to be to this subclass to get a little bit more out of it. And with the neutral game, you have 1 charged melee to play with, and then the Phoenix Dive, and then the super. But the neutral game itself is the Phoenix Dive and the charged melee. And I just want you to know that 2 of the most used warlike exotics pair really well with this class, Ophidian Aspects, the Transversive Steps. I'm not going to be covering them in this video, but obviously they work well. You can do some fun things like Chromatic Fire too. So for this first exotic, since we're only working with a charged melee or the Phoenix Dive, the Sunbracers fit the mold.
You're in the lead. Zone B captured. You have advantage.
The Sunbracers are very underrated. Melee builds in Destiny can be tough though, so again, for a lot of this, as you saw with the Striker tree, I'm going to be using the Monte Carlo for the melee charge. If you don't go Monte Carlo, have a decent strength stat. In my mind, the Sunbracers have been pretty much forgotten about. Not only do they work with bottom tree Dawn, but any of the trees, especially the empowered melee mid tree and the top tree's ranged melee. They state increases the duration of solar grenades. Solar melee kills grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a short time. So we're using one of the lone assets to the tree, the charged melee. When you do get that charged melee final blow, a timer goes on the screen, and for 5 seconds, you can start bombarding the map with solar grenades. What's nice is you can throw them into various spots, and when enemies walk through them, you can use your primary, gun them down. And if you get low health and all of that and all the chaos, you can Phoenix dive. Maybe you're up in the air, you're throwing grenades, taking damage, you can Phoenix dive down. For the sun bracers on them, you want 2 things. Fastball, and the second one's going to be momentum transfer for solar. Enhanced if you have it, it's a must in my opinion, because you want to throw the grenades faster, and with momentum transfer, causing damage with the grenade greatly reduces your melee cooldown. So you're looking to get a final blow with the charged melee, immediately come out of that melee with the Sunbracer buff, and when you start chunking those grenades out, when you start tagging players with them, it's giving you your melee energy back so you can go off and do it again. It's working off of each other. And note that you don't have to get a kill, you just have to get hits, tags. This has a very strong Sunsinger vibe to it, and that's why I hope one day that this tree does get something like Viking Funeral or similar, because this would be very deadly. Even if you decide not to use Sunbracers with bottom tree in your next play session, give the Sunbracers a try. The solar grenades lasting longer is a really good thing, and the amount you can throw out into choke points is amazing. For the next part of the neutral game, since we had our charged melee, now it's time to pair the Phoenix Dive. Since you're going to be up in the air anyway, what better exotic to pair than the Wings of Sacred Dawn?
Tell them to line up faster.
When DAWNBLADE is equipped, aiming weapons while you're midair suspends you there for a short time, improving airborne accuracy, reducing incoming flinch, and granting damage resistance. There's a lot of good buffs with it, and weapon hits extend this effect's duration. So you could be up in the air, you're going to have the damage resistance, you're going to get reduced flinch, and once you're done, regardless if you've taken damage or not, you can just Phoenix dive down. It's a perfect pairing. You get about a 17% damage reduction from the air. That's enough to make a hand cannon 4-shot you instead of 3-shot you to the head. It's enough to make an AR take an extra bullet or 2. It's enough to throw off the majority of weapons in Destiny 2's optimal TTK. With the wings, if you overuse it, you're going to be punished for doing so. But you should be rounding corners from the air, aiming down sights, use it to hover and bait with a shotgun, use it to jump hover with a sniper. You can round corners with your primary, and if you hit them with a surprise element, you're gonna have first shot. When they notice that you're there, you're gonna have the reduced damage and reduced flinch. In each of these scenarios, right when you're done, you can Phoenix dive straight down to get your health back. I prefer the Firebolt for this exotic because if someone's rushing me, I can throw it down at my feet, be suspended up in the air. I have that damage resistance. I can follow up with a melee. If I have a shotgun, I can do that. Just use whatever I have to follow up with. It has its uses, but be very discreet as possible. Try to be in the air before they can see you. Be in the air where they don't expect you. Don't overuse it. I know Chaperone's a really good pairing, Sniper's a really good pairing. In gunfights, you can do a little short hop to aim down sights to be suspended in the air, to have that little extra damage reduction to get off your final blow. It can work, try it out. But with one exotic pairing with the melee, with one exotic pairing with the Phoenix Dive, the last one is a switch I make, and I encourage you to do so when you have the time. Console load times don't help, and with the new consoles coming, it should be a lot smoother. Even on console though, I still make the switch because of how potent the bottom tree super is. It's very beneficial to your team if you run the Prometheum Spurs. This is only good while in super, and since the super is so good, it's worthy for a quick switch. While Daybreak is active, defeating combatants or guardians creates a healing and empowering rift at their location. Kind of how the Vest is for Spectral Blades, the Ursa for Titan, Skull for Voidwalker, Phoenix Protocol for the mid-tree well, this is a super exotic. Specifically for Daybreak. And the wells they create are nice because you can be in DAWNBLADE, say you take some damage, you could Phoenix dive down, which is offensive now, to get out of trouble, and once you're on the ground you can run through one of them to grab a health regen and keep going. The wells are very bright and inviting for your teammates. They will see them, unlike friendly sunspots, because you don't know if they're going to grant the buff from the Titan boots. You don't know if they're enemy sunspots, you don't know if they're friendly, but these wells are for your team and it's very apparent that they are. Since you don't have boost glide in your super, you can ground yourself if you take fire, and after the fighting's done, you can actually stay in one of the wells to have increased damage and a well giving you health. It gets even better when the rest of your team knows that you have these boots on. And say you're playing with a small fire team or a full fire team, let them know and they can go get in those wells. It's just a quick swap for your super only, then you switch back. Bottom Tree's biggest strength is the Phoenix Dive. It's very powerful, I want to state it again, use it often. It's basically like a built-in Wormhusk. It allows you to be aggressive, it allows you to survive when players are rushing you. Use it every chance that you get, and you don't have to be too high up in the air at all to get it to activate. With that being said, that's really your neutral game. A charged melee and the Phoenix Dive, there's very little to work with, but you can make it work. Hopefully it gets a buff one day. I don't think that it's better than Top Tree at the moment. It does have a better super, but the Top Tree's neutral game is leaps and bounds better. And as I continue this series, I'm going to call out things like this as I see them, what's really going on with the subclass, what's wrong with them, and a couple different ways to try them and have some fun in your weekend or weekly play sessions. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. And if you're looking for a new controller, I am sponsored by Scuff. Use the link down below and use my code COOL at checkout for a discount. When I've been running Bottom Tree DAWNBLADE, I have either 9 or 10 intellect because the super is so strong and so good. I have Monte Carlo on a lot of the time for a charged melee, and try to be as aggressive as I can with the Phoenix Dive. And I feel that Phoenix Dive is often looked over because of how bad the rest of the neutral game is. Use it early and use it often. But I would like to know what you think about Bottom Tree DAWNBLADE, where it was at the beginning of Destiny, mid-Destiny, and where it is right now. Have you been running it? If not, give it a chance and tell us what you think, and see if you can make some combinations work. Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.